Right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm absolutely delighted you've decided to spend a bit of your time with me today. Now, before we dive in, I want you to think about the last time you felt genuinely uncomfortable. Not physically uncomfortable, though that counts too, but that deep, almost squirmy feeling when you're faced with something that challenges you. Something that makes you want to retreat into your comfort zone and stay there indefinitely. Got that feeling in mind? Brilliant! Because today we're going to explore why that feeling, that uncomfortable, sometimes downright awful sensation, might just be your greatest teacher and your most reliable compass for growth.
You see, there's this peculiar thing about human nature. We're absolutely brilliant at avoiding discomfort. We've built entire industries around it, haven't we? Fast food because cooking feels like too much effort. Streaming services because choosing what to watch is overwhelming. Social media algorithms that feed us exactly what we want to see, never challenging our worldview. We've become masters of the path of least resistance. But here's the thing that nobody really talks about in polite conversation. Comfort is overrated. In fact, I'd argue that our obsession with comfort is quietly sabotaging our potential for growth, creativity, and genuine fulfillment. Let me tell you about Sarah. Not her real name, naturally. Sarah was a marketing executive who came to one of my workshops last year. Lovely woman, incredibly talented, but she'd been in the same role for 8 years. 8 years! She was brilliant at her job, respected by her colleagues, earning a decent salary. By all accounts, she should have been content, but she wasn't. During our conversation, Sarah admitted something that struck me profoundly. She said, "I know exactly what I'm doing every single day. I could do this job with my eyes closed." And that terrifies me because I feel like I'm disappearing. That phrase, "I feel like I'm disappearing," it haunted me for weeks because Sarah had articulated something most of us feel but rarely admit. When we're too comfortable, when everything becomes predictable and safe, we stop growing. And when we stop growing, a part of us withers. Now, I'm not suggesting we should seek out misery or deliberately make our lives difficult. That would be rather masochistic, wouldn't it? What I'm proposing is far more nuanced and, dare I say, more exciting. The ancient Stoics had this fascinating concept called voluntary discomfort. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in the ancient world, would deliberately sleep on hard surfaces, eat simple foods, and expose himself to cold weather. Not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he understood something profound about human psychology. Our capacity to handle adversity grows stronger when we practice it voluntarily. Think about it this way. When you go to the gym, you're literally paying money to be uncomfortable. You're lifting heavy things that your body doesn't want to lift, running distances that make your lungs burn, pushing yourself to the point of muscle fatigue. And why? Because you understand that this temporary discomfort leads to long-term strength, health, and vitality. The same principle applies to every other area of our lives, yet we seem to forget this outside the gymnasium.
I'll share something personal with you. 3 years ago, I was asked to give a keynote speech at a conference in front of 2,000 people. My immediate reaction? Absolute terror. Public speaking wasn't my forte, still isn't really, and the thought of standing in front of that many people made my stomach churn. I had 2 choices: decline the invitation and stay safely in my comfort zone,
or accept and deal with the discomfort. I chose the latter, and it was genuinely awful in the weeks leading up to it. I had nightmares about forgetting my speech, about tripping on stage, about the audience walking out en masse. But here's what happened. In preparing for that speech, I discovered capabilities I didn't know I possessed. I learned to structure my thoughts more clearly, to connect with audiences in ways I'd never attempted before. The experience was transformative, not because it was comfortable, but precisely because it wasn't. That speech, terrifying as it was, opened doors I didn't even know existed. It led to opportunities, connections, and personal insights that have shaped my career and my understanding of myself ever since.
There's actual neuroscience behind this, you know. When we encounter novel situations that challenge us, our brains literally rewire themselves. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections, is most active when we're learning something new or navigating unfamiliar territory. Researchers have found that people who regularly step outside their comfort zones show increased creativity, better problem-solving abilities, and greater resilience. There's even evidence suggesting that controlled exposure to stress and discomfort can improve our immune systems and increase longevity. Dr. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset versus fixed mindset is particularly relevant here. She found that people who embrace challenges, who get comfortable with the discomfort of not knowing, tend to achieve more than those who avoid difficulty to protect their self-image. So, how do we actually implement this in our daily lives? Because it's all well and good to philosophize about discomfort, but what does it look like in practice? Start small, ridiculously small. If you always order the same coffee, try something different. If you always take the same route to work, take a different path. If you always eat lunch at your desk, go sit somewhere new. These micro-adventures might seem trivial, but they're training your brain to be okay with uncertainty, with the mild anxiety that comes from breaking routine. Then, gradually escalate. Have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Apply for that job that feels slightly out of your league. Sign up for that course that intimidates you. Start that project you've been putting off because you're worried you might not be good enough. One technique I found particularly effective is what I call the 5% rule. Each week, try to do something that feels about 5% outside your comfort zone. Not so much that you're paralyzed by fear, but enough that you feel that familiar flutter of nervous energy.
Now, I can hear some of you thinking, this is all very well, but what if I fail? What if I embarrass myself? What if I'm not ready? Here's a revolutionary thought. What if failure isn't the opposite of success, but part of it? What if embarrassment is just your ego's way of trying to keep you small? What if nobody is ever truly ready for the things that matter most? I've noticed that the people who achieve extraordinary things aren't necessarily the most talented or the most prepared. They're the ones who've made peace with uncertainty, who've learned to dance with discomfort rather than run from it.
There's this insidious thing about comfort zones. They shrink when we don't challenge them. If you stop doing things that make you nervous, your capacity for handling nervousness diminishes. If you avoid difficult conversations, your ability to navigate conflict atrophies. If you stick to familiar routines, your adaptability muscles weaken. It's like the opposite of compound interest. Instead of your capabilities growing over time, they quietly diminish through lack of use. I've seen this happen to brilliant people. They become so good at avoiding discomfort that they lose the ability to cope with it when it inevitably arrives. Because discomfort will arrive, whether we invite it or not. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, and if we haven't practiced handling uncertainty, we're woefully unprepared when it matters most.
What if we started viewing discomfort differently? Instead of seeing it as something to avoid, what if we saw it as information? What if that nervous energy before a big presentation wasn't a sign that you shouldn't do it, but a sign that it matters to you? What if that anxiety about starting something new wasn't a red flag, but your internal compass pointing toward growth? The Japanese have this concept called ikigai, your reason for being. It's often depicted as the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. But I think there's a fifth element they don't mention: what makes you uncomfortable in all the right ways.
We live in a culture that's increasingly risk-averse. We bubble wrap our children, both literally and metaphorically. We create safe spaces where ideas can't be challenged. We design algorithms that never show us anything that might disturb our worldview. Whilst I'm all for genuine safety and psychological well-being, I worry we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're so focused on protecting ourselves from discomfort that we're inadvertently protecting ourselves from growth, from resilience, from the very experiences that make us more capable human beings.
Here's the beautiful paradox. The more comfortable you become with being uncomfortable, the more comfortable your life becomes overall. Not because external circumstances necessarily improve, though they often do, but because your capacity to handle whatever life throws at you expands dramatically. You stop being afraid of job interviews because you've practiced being nervous and discovered you survive. You stop avoiding difficult relationship conversations because you've learned that temporary awkwardness often leads to deeper connection. You stop procrastinating on important projects because you've made friends with the discomfort of not knowing exactly what you're doing.
So here's my challenge for you, and for myself, because I need reminding of this as much as anyone. This week, choose one thing that makes you slightly uncomfortable and lean into it. Not something that terrifies you. We're not aiming for trauma here, but something that makes you feel that familiar flutter of, I'm not sure about this. Maybe it's signing up for that dance class you've been thinking about. Maybe it's having an honest conversation with someone you care about. Maybe it's starting that creative project you've been putting off. Maybe it's simply putting your hand up in a meeting when you have something to say, but you're worried it might not be brilliant. Whatever it is, remember this. Your comfort zone is a lovely place to visit, but you don't want to live there permanently. All the good stuff, the growth, the connections, the discoveries about yourself happens at the edges, in that slightly scary space between what you know you can do and what you dream you might be capable of. Growth and comfort cannot coexist, but discomfort and joy? Discomfort and fulfillment? Discomfort and a life well lived? They're the best of friends.
Right, that's quite enough philosophizing from me for one day. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What's one area of your life where you've been playing it too safe? What's one uncomfortable thing you're going to try this week? Drop me a comment below. I read every single one, and your insights often inspire future videos.
If this resonated with you, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing for more conversations about living deliberately in an often chaotic world. Until next time, remember, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.